I think if you make those connections, and you have that mutual respect. I think that's what it comes down to, is respect. At the end of the day, there's a reciprocity that's there, and that's exactly what happened. You know, you will always have that job in this industry. I feel maybe that's an over security, but
Yes.
but I do think that, I really do, because we're small but we're large.
So it's very important that, for the service
Yes.
from both sides
Uh-huh.
to make sure that it's being delivered.
Yes.
If and this goes from a vendor side, and I'm talking to property managers. If you're out there, treat your vendors right. They are the ones that are gonna be by your side, helping you to make sure that asset of yours is gonna gain value. Well, welcome guys to Multifamily Off the Cuff. This is gonna be episode number 17, and I wanna thank you for coming up. And guys, I just wanna introduce this special guest today. I have Gina. Gina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
So Gina, I wanna just give you the heads up. This is a podcast that's dedicated to the multifamily industry. Okay.
Sure.
What we talk to is going to be people that want to get involved with the multifamily, people that trying to understand what the multifamily is about, whether they want to join the actual management side, they want to become property managers, leasing agents, or we're talking also to companies that will love to provide services to the multifamily. So that's who we talk to, okay? So always we're going to refer to our audience.
Got it.
All right, so let's go ahead and fill them in right now with who you are, what you've been doing, and kind of give them an idea who they're listening to.
Okay, sure. My name is Gina Da Silva, and I have been in the property management industry for about 20 years as of this year.
20 years, that's it?
20 years,
Wow.
yes. I can't believe it. Started out in completely different fields. Didn't really have any idea of what multifamily housing was. Started off in off-campus student housing.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I was going to school at USF, needed a job, kind of got into it that way as a leasing agent.
Okay.
Took a short break for about a year. Started a master's in public health after undergrad.
Okay.
And then got called back to the industry, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
As many people say within this industry, it's really hard to get out once you get in.
Yes.
So went back on site as an assistant manager, and then just progressed from there within the manager role. My specialty tends to be within rehabs for stabilized communities.
Okay.
I typically stay about 3 years, depending on ownership and when they want to sell, things of that nature. But the rehab has really been, a passion of mine. I love seeing it from start to finish, turning it into this magnificent creature that it ends up becoming.
Yes.
So, and I know you've been there for part of that process at some of the communities I've worked at. I look forward, always to growing within the field of property management, whatever that means next for me. Right now, I'm at a senior property level.
Okay.
I have traveled before and gone to different properties out of state with the company that I'm with. Love doing that. Love that part of it. Really getting to know the people, the employees, and just watching people grow. Besides myself, seeing their development and just getting to know people in general, wherever I land.
Okay. Gina, and as all the guests that we have brought to the show, this is the first time someone actually mentioned what a rehab process is. For our audience, it is very important for them to understand the lingo of the industry.
Absolutely.
So some of them might not understand exactly what a rehab is, right? So what is it? This is my understanding when it comes to that. Usually, it is a new investor, someone that just bought a property. They want to, rehab the property, so to create more value to it. Maybe have it turn and then flip, if we want to say flip the whole property and then hold it for about 3 years, bring some value up, and then sell it.
Yes.
So
That's a great analogy. I think if you can think of that show, Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Yes.
Think of that times, 500 or whatever the
Exactly.
community size is.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then when it comes to rehab, what does that entail in your experience that you have deal with? So our audience, whether our people that want to provide services, they might see an opportunity if that's the niche that they're into.
Definitely. So value add items can be anything from the interior of the units themselves to the exterior with the amenities. So, one property may decide, oh, I want to add in, a new fitness center.
Okay.
So if you've got fitness equipment or things like that you want to bring to the table, it's definitely a niche market. You can definitely add value in that way. When it comes to the interiors, things like cabinetry, new lighting fixtures, mirrors, just little elements that add those extra details that really create that value for that unit and give it a new appearance overall. So if you are a vendor looking to get into this market, it's definitely something that you're gonna do in bulk, right? So
Right.
you're not just doing one at a time typically. You're usually taking 5 to 10 units at one time and turning them over. So if you as a vendor can bring to that table great pricing, that's one thing. But really, at the end of the day, what are we about? Service, okay? So if you can meet those expectations with the timelines that the managers and the ownership have, if you can just be a level above, you clean up when you're done, simple things like that, that is really critical, okay?
Yes.
Bottom line, absolutely, that's important. But service, I think, is overlooked sometimes. It's very, very important to that process, especially as a property manager with the maintenance supervisor. Those are things that we look at big picture.
Okay.
Because time is money. And
Yes.
if you can save us that extra step in the long run, you actually are saving money.
Correct.
So.
That's perfect. So when I look into, I have the chance to not only be on the board of director of the local association of the city that we're in. I have helped many vendors to put their foot in the door when it comes to multifamily, trying to teach them and understand how this business is run.
Right.
It's just a fast-paced industry that will ask you for a lot. And then being as the name of the podcast is multifamily off the cuff, meaning that we don't leave anything off the table. We say it all. So you got to do a lot for little pay. Okay, you have to be okay with that. And you also have to wait for payment, not only 30 days, sometimes it's 45, 60, 90 days in some cases.
Sure.
So, but then, what they provide back is volume. So you understand that you just said, it's a bulk of 20 properties, 20 units,
Right.
and they can turn into 500.
Right.
So if you can manage that and then you can wait for payment, I promise you, guys, that you're gonna do very
Definitely.
well.
And like you said, having been on the board together, it's word of mouth, and it spreads like wildfire in this industry. Oh, you need this? I know who you can call. I can't tell you in a week how many people call, hey Gina, do you have a vendor for this? Like,
Yes.
can you tell me, like, who can I call that can help me? And I think it's reciprocal too,
Oh yeah.
And within the company itself too, the company I work for, we have meetings, we talk, we all know. And so, calling your regional, hey, do you have somebody that, you'd recommend for this? And right off the bat, they're going to spat out. So if you do a good job, you come through, at the end of the day, it's going to pay off.
And you know how it works in the opposite way? Is when I have regionals. Hey, do you know a property manager that, because I'm looking for somebody?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the kind of communication.
Absolutely.
Have you ever worked with so-and-so because I'm about to interview this person?
Right.
So so it's very important that, for the service
Yes.
from both sides to make sure that it's being delivered.
Yes.
If, and this goes from a vendor side, and I'm talking to property managers. If you're out there, treat your vendors right. They are the ones that are going to be, by your side, helping you to make sure that asset of yours is going to, gain value.
Absolutely. And that's actually, good story for myself. Back when one of my properties sold years back, one of my connections that was a vendor, more so on the advertising side, he knew that the property was selling, and he's like, hey, I have this connection for you. Okay. Right off the bat, I think if you make those connections, and you have that mutual respect. I think that's what it comes down to, is respect. At the end of the day, there's a reciprocity that's there, and that's exactly what happened. You know, you will always have that job in this industry. I feel maybe that's an over security, but I do think that, I really do, because we're small but we're large. You know, having been to FAA, the Florida Apartment Association has their convention every year. It's coming up actually in September, at the end of the month, and you meet people from all over, nationally. And to have those connections, be able to say, oh, yeah, I know so-and-so in Texas.
Right.
And wait a second, you're looking for a job, So it comes full circle. At the end of the 100%. Day, it comes full circle for both parties.
Awesome. So always when the podcast, the purpose of it, we don't monetize, and we tell them, we say this all the time, we don't monetize out of this. And doing after, we opened Prisco, and we noticed that there was a gap. I kind of, sorry about this. We had a gap on the miscommunication and misunderstanding, when it comes to providing service or expectations. Yeah. So me and Irene came up with this podcast to make sure we can close the gap by bringing people like yourself, VPs, regionals, and maintenance, so we can speak about it. Everything that you can find right now on the podcast is how to buy it, how to flip it, but no one actually talks about what goes in the inside of it.
Right.
So I think this is perfect for not just us to learn more, but the audience that wants to get into the multifamily.
Sure. And I think, too, at the higher levels, obviously they respect us on site, but I don't think there's really a knowledge of everything that we go through on site. So I think it's a great perspective, too, if an owner is listening or an investor right now, they're able to hone in on the on-site level, because if you don't have that great team on site, that money is not going to flow in.
Right.
And at the end of the day, everyone is bottom line driven with regards to the money. We do have residents that we love and we care about, and employees, but if you have that symbiotic relationship with your on-site team, that's going to overflow into the resident side of things. That's going to overflow into the vendors, and then that's eventually going to make your owners money. So.
And everyone is happy.
That's right.
Yes.
That's the name of the game.
So as we do, and then this introduction to get warm up with, we just, unexpected questions that I throw at you.
No problem.
So what we do here, we, come up with some questions. And this one, for you guys, if you guys know, we name every episode. So the title for this one is what? We're Not Perfect. Okay? So I'd like to understand, and then for the audience to understand that the property management is not perfect. Okay? We actually, since we provide services to the actual unit, we average, between 10, 15, 7-day service calls because someone somewhere in the property dropped the ball. Okay? So it's more common than you think.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and you guys have been there for me in situations like that, too. It happens.
It happens, right? So, but I want the vendor side to understand, that the industry is not perfect. So, and then that's how I created some question. You had a chance to review it. Let's go with the first one. Okay. So, out of the services that's being provided to the multifamily, which one you think it is the most difficult one to deal with?
Okay. So this was a twofold question for me. Okay, and to preface your comment about perfection, I always tell my teams we don't strive for perfection, we strive for excellence. Right? That's a key word, because no one is perfect. Right? So when it comes to the vendor side and those issues, I think the two that I have, and I'm going to just pick one, but one is pest control. Okay. And resurfacing. Okay. Okay. And I don't know which one you want me to elaborate on.
No. So let's go. Yeah. So let's talk about pest control.
Okay.
Because that's a subject that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I think it's an often overlooked one.
Okay.
Especially like if you're in new construction, maybe you have some issues, but not like a stabilized property, right? And that's what I tend to work with.
Right.
Okay. So you have this takeover of a community, and you come in, you don't know what's been done prior to you, right? In terms of servicing, and you hope they're on a quarterly maintenance for every single unit, or you look at it and maybe it's only a call-in basis for the treatment. So, you're walking into a unit that's vacant, okay? It looks great, okay? You don't know what's going to come out at night, those sort of things. And someone moves in and then your worst fear happens, okay? Boom, you've got this call. I'm seeing things, okay? So we try on our end to be preventative with that as best we can, whether it's, before they move out, we're going to schedule a routine inspection. We're going to spray it proactively. But stuff happens, okay, as we've talked about, not perfect. But pest control is not something that you really, if you're on a contract in multifamily, you can pick up the phone, okay, and say, I need somebody out here. Usually they're going to tell you, okay, you're going to have to wait till your next service date, which may be a week away.
Oh, wow.
Or you're going to say, they're going to say, okay, I can come out, but it's not going to be till tomorrow, and there's going to be an extra service trip charge because it's not your actual day. So those are the factors. And if it's a really bad situation, of course, you don't mind paying for it. But it's not something like with what you're telling me, you have, like you said, 12 to 15 same day, let's get out here, let's take care of this. And pest control is not something that's going to be an overnight thing. It's not like, okay, paint a wall, it's done. No, it's something that's going to require treatments, more than one typically, if it's really bad. So for me, I feel like that's one of the areas that for maintenance, for leasing, and eventually the resident, it can become a struggle because you don't know what you don't know. You're not in all those apartments 24/7. If a resident doesn't report it, they move out. Even though you do that inspection, we know things come out at night. It's like it's one of those things. And I'm not saying that to any one particular property, but this is just overall. And it's not just my sentiment. It's friends that I have in the industry that.
And 20 years of experience,
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah.
So let me see if we recap. So it's the pest control and the hassle that comes with it, to make sure that the problem that you're experiencing is taken care of. But then the service being provided is the hassle part of it.
Yeah, and I don't know if hassle is the right word because it's not really the vendor's fault either, right? Okay. If they could make some type of a program where you have the next day, but it's not an extra fee, Like if I call you and I say I have a unit to clean tomorrow, you're not going to say, oh, there's an extra fee for it, right?
Right.
So, at the end of the day, it's not always like a large problem. You don't have like 10 units that are like that, but it's that one, and that's a make or break it deal. When you move in, the last thing you want as a tenant is something creepy crawly, whatever that may be, and even though we do spray every unit prior to somebody moving in, and we do those pre-walks and we walk the units as soon as they give notice, stuff happens, right? Things get overlooked, people don't report things, whatever, but it's those one-time situations that can make or break you,
So this is something that I used to work for a company previously, and I used, in this my position was in sales. This company provided services to different industries. This will be government, commercial, multifamily. And then the problem that I had is they have a particular normal issue for these electronic devices that they had, and it will beep, constantly because the battery was low.
I think we had that problem, yeah.
Yeah, so the battery was low. So what happened is that when the battery is low in this particular device, it's not considered an emergency, okay? So in the industry that I was in, it's not considered an emergency, okay? So the problem that and this is an advice that I'm giving to our audience if you're providing services to different industry, is that you cannot treat a problem the same. Even in the same industry that we're in, and you have different type of apartment communities. You can have a garden style, you can have a mid-rise, you can have a high-rise, and all issues are going to be different. So in this particular company, they were treating this particular problem the same, and they said it is not an emergency. And I said, well, it is, depending on where this device is located, because in a commercial building, it is in the basement, hidden in an electrical room where no one can listen to it. Well, meanwhile, in an apartment, it is right there in the hallway next to somebody's apartment.
Yep.
So it cannot be beeping all night because now it's not allowing that resident to sleep.
Right.
Maybe it's a nurse, maybe it's a new mom, that have a newborn. So then what's going to happen is this person is going to report it, it's going to create, or write bad reviews for the property, unnecessary because you're not considering it as an emergency. So what I'm trying to say here is that you have to understand the industry that you're providing service.
The perspective of your client, whether that's your resident and if you're in a hospital, the nurses, the doctors. Perspective is key.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. So, and then that's the same thing goes to the pest control. Maybe they're just providing, that pest control services, but they're treating the multifamily just like anything else, and they need to change that mindset. Right. And that's what I always preach that you need to first understand who you're providing the service to, so you can actually adapt and change and tweak your services accordingly.
Right. And that's not to say that there's not companies out there, because I have worked with some really great ones that will do that and will amend that. But again, it's like not an overall fix, because you're going to have to keep treating it, and it didn't get there overnight, and it's not going to go away overnight. So, to speak to that effect, again, bring yourself back to perspective.
Perfect. So now, guys, the key word here is going to be now?
Perspective.
Perspective. Awesome.
Like Prisco, P, perspective.
There we go. So, okay, moving on to the second question. So, in your opinion, what is the life of a property manager on site? Let's tell the vendor what we don't know.
Sure. I think people use this analogy all the time with like wearing many hats. And that's true, definitely. But I think you have to remain, I don't want to say calm, because everything is important, but you can have a calming nature about you. The life of a property manager, no day is ever the same. I come in the morning, I'm expecting to do one thing, and then something happens in building 10, and you're called over there for that emergency with maintenance, and you're going to check it out, So from a property manager's perspective, so I break it down into like different elements, right? You've got the financial side of things. And I tend to take most of that home with me, because I can focus, and I want to be focused and diligent on those sides of the coin. So my side for the financial parts, I tend to do that quiet time. Okay. But when you're on site, you're the face of the property. It's like you're running a little town, right? You're the town mayor.
There you go.
Right? And the mayor, as we know, wears many different hats. So
that's a really perspective way to put it, okay? So they can understand it.
It is, yeah, absolutely. So you've got that side of it. I've got the HR side of it, where I've got employees that I work with. I don't like the word manage, because we're a team. Okay. We work together. We have to run this together. I need them just as much as they need me. So your HR, you've got the sales side of things. Right. If a leasing agent's busy, then I'm going to step out there and lease apartments too. You've got the service side of things. I work very closely with my maintenance team. That is my bread and butter. I probably work more with them than I do with my leasing once my leasing has been trained and off and running. So there's really not one element of property management. I feel like it's a broad range of things that we don't touch. We've got to know many things, and we've got to know it now, and we've got to do it now. And at the end of the day, you are that mayor of that town. We do events. We put on events for people. We just did a movie by the pool at my current community, and so you're out there meeting people, getting reviews. So you do marketing. Right. So you do that. Analogy for wearing many hats is definitely true, and you are the mayor of your town that you manage.
Okay, so based on what you're saying, and then if we're talking in this, we're talking to vendors, they have no idea that they, what they're getting into. And then here, this guy, it's a brand new person. He's providing landscaping services. And he shows up Monday at 9 a.m. on the second of the month. He has no idea what's happening, So the idea for this question is so people can understand the life of a property manager. That it's a busy, it's a timeline for reports that you constantly have to be submitting.
Yep.
That's the majority of your time is consumed by reports.
Oh, yes.
It's a lot of reports that you have to be submitting. It's just for the financial part of it, because there is a owner that is asking for these numbers, as long as all the other investors that might want to see their ROI from what the money that they put in. So again, guys, when you need to understand what I trying to do with this question is to teach them, to be cautious, to be gentle.
Conscientious. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they're coming, when to come. What did I say? The second of the month. Can you explain that?
Sure, absolutely. So most communities, the rent is due on the 1st. Some will give a grace period like the 2nd and the 3rd, and then it's late on the 4th. So usually between the property manager and the assistant manager, they're at that time, processing the rent payments and then posting notices if needed for that community. So you've got residents coming in, so it's not just our job that we're doing. You've got other residents coming in, asking questions, things of that nature. And, not every manager is going to stop what they're doing to go and sit with you and take the time. And even if it's just a hi and bye, you as a vendor aren't getting that quality attention that you're probably craving and wanting. Mm-hmm. So if you can wait till the middle of the month, might be a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Of course, myself personally, I'll welcome anyone with open arms, that comes in. Yeah. But I know that my commitment for time is probably a little bit more open during the middle of the month. But yes, the first of the month is crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So guys, stay away from properties, from the 30th, so let's through the 5th. Yeah. Okay. Just give them a break. They have plenty of their plate. And then again, what's the other between in the month period? What do you think another busy time for you guys?
So we close out with my property management company at the end of the month, like the very last day. But I know some are on different operating schedules. Yeah. So, just being vigilant of that, knowing the property management company that you're working with. I mean, it's not a common question that you call up and be like, when do you close out your month, Right. But talk, communicate, network, like we've talked about. I'm sure if you ask anyone in the apartment association, they know someone that works with XYZ company and will be able to tell you, I think they close out around this time. Maybe go in there. And if you network yourself well, meet a friend at the association, say, hey, can I go along with you? Because if they know the lingo, they know the time frames, then that's your in,
exactly.
Group networking, that kind of thing.
We have elaborated that many times. To go ahead and join the local apartment association. Sure. This podcast has been listened in Texas, California, different states. And I always tell them that there's always going to be a local association. It is great to get involved. That's the easiest, fastest way to learn the industry. And then obviously because we're part of it, we want to encourage people to get, involved so they can learn.
Absolutely.
And that will be the best way to speed up the process.
Yeah. And it's not just networking, it's education.
Right.
Which I know we're going to probably touch on a question that kind of relates me back to that at the end. So we'll get there.
All right. So we got that out of the way.
Yep.
So how important is the interaction between maintenance and office staff and its downfalls?
Ooh, like I mentioned, that's your bread and butter.
Okay.
So there is no separation, right? There's no, that's leasing and that's maintenance. No, we work together. And I know that every team that I've had, there's always been that great relationship. And if there isn't, we're going to sit down and we're going to nip that in the butt. Because you can't have one without the other.
Right.
Right? And like I mentioned, I tend to work more with maintenance because if maintenance runs effectively, whether it's your turns process, which is turning over a unit, getting it ready for the next person, if you make your current residents happy, whether that's fixing things in a timely fashion or just right the first time, they're going to renew. Okay? That's going to help your leasing team. They're not going to have phone calls coming in. And I think, at least for us on site, the maintenance director in my community, he's great, him. He doesn't necessarily wait for the leasing agents to make those phone calls. He'll pick up the phone and just say, hey, I just want to let you know this is the status on your washer and dryer. Not being afraid to have those lines cross over each other, right? And on the flip side, with leasing, I have a leasing agent currently on the weekend. Someone called for something like tub diverter, where you change they just didn't know what they didn't know. And we try to teach him as much as we can in the move-in process. But rather than call out maintenance, right, on a Saturday, he said, okay, let me just take a quick peek. He ran up to the apartment, quick thing, boom, done. Don't have to call out maintenance. Leasing, yeah. There we go. Yeah, so, it's critical to the functionality of your property and the success of your property. And I will tell you right now, if that relationship is not full circle, your residents will notice it. Your regionals will notice it. Your owners will notice it. And you just can't have one without the other. So it's absolutely vital.
Beautiful. Let me ask you, on this part right here, because I noticed that there is at times there is a conflict, and miscommunication between maintenance and leasing. There was a time that I was called to translate because there was a miscommunication with the Spanish-speaking maintenance, and then the property manager didn't know the language, so there was a barrier right there. It was really weird because to hire a maintenance supervisor that couldn't speak English well at the time, and then I was calling in to translate, and that's when I realized that in any property is being run like an actual business.
Yeah.
So and every office has their issues. So then that's when I noticed, they're not perfect, just like we aren't either.
No.
There are issues there. Maybe someone didn't write down that there is a service that's needed in a particular unit, and it got missed.
Yeah.
So then you have to apologize to the resident, and why there's a delay of the response of their bathtub or whatever the case is. So it happens, and that's why I wanted to bring this to the attention, so the vendors don't feel that they're not allowed to make a mistake.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
that they had to drive for excellence, like we have said before,
Yes.
but it does happen in the industry, and then us as a vendor, we need to be prepared. When you mentioned about pest control,
Yes.
and they're charging extra, anybody, and this is something that I'm always going to be against, is that if you are in the industry and you are charging extra when the client is vulnerable because they need you, because something happened, it's out of your control. Let's just say that you have a turn, and then the person that is doing a particular service got a delay, and then you have to reschedule with the next vendor.
Yep.
It is not your fault. So, but then the other person is going to charge you whatever fee they want to charge, in that case, it is unfair.
Sure.
So I always tell them, when a client, says that, they're being charged same-day service, I ask, do they give you a discount when you program your turns in advance? No, they don't. So why will they charge you when you need it the same day? So if this company already have their pipeline of service already booked, they already know that there is an income coming and security of jobs, they're not giving a property any discount. So why will they charge the client when
True.
they need you the most?
True. And I think, too, to speak to the vendor side, too, like there's things like abuse, right? And you don't want it to get to that extreme. But like you mentioned, it's not. Again, going back to reciprocity, like, it's a relationship between the two of you. And so you're hoping that you don't take advantage of that, and you try not to. But when you do need them the most, like you just hope that they'll be there.
Right, without charging extra.
Without charging extra, yeah.
Yes. So okay, so then on the in your case, you haven't seen on your experience that there has been a downfall between maintenance and the staff. Usually so that means, so in your case, it means a lot that the leadership that you do have when it comes to getting your team has worked.
Yes. So like I mentioned, doing the rehabs, I've always had to come in and build the teams, right? There's some people that are left from a takeover sometimes. Some people leave on their own accord, whatever the case may be. But if you have a formula, you kind of know what works, and every property is different. So there's going to be different circumstances, different situations. I'm sorry, I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. But like with my situation currently, I brought back the supervisor that I worked with previously. Okay. It comes back around because we have a system. We know how it works. And that's not to say we're open-minded. We'll change what's needed and adapt us accordingly. But we both believe in having really strong teams. We are like a family when we're there. We're there more than we are with our own families. And so we work hard, we play hard. We try to give the residents the best service possible. So it's really formulated overnight. Like, my present situation, we didn't walk into that. We've had to build and create that. And again, you can network and find people in the industry. And some people cross over from maintenance to vendor and then vendor to maintenance or leasing, So it's not perfect as the topic of discussion for the day, but striving for that excellence, you always keep trying and you always keep learning and evolving.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So coming up to the last one. In your opinion, if you could change something for the better of the industry, what would that be?
Okay. So there's obviously things here and there that come up, but I think one of the biggest things for me is education. I think it's so important, and education as it pertains to the law, right?
Okay.
Laws are ever changing. Okay, so it's not something, oh, I learned it in 2005, we're good. No, you need to be continually learning, and whether it's through your apartment association, IRIM, individual courses that your company offers, just get out there and educate yourself. Read publications, watch things like this, off the cuff. Just continually keep throwing yourself into these things that expand your mind, okay? Laws are critical to what we do, and I don't think outsiders really understand what we do in multifamily. And it's not just a job, it's a career, it's a lifestyle, and it affects many people. It affects people in their housing situations. It affects your employees. So the more educated you are when it comes to the legal realm of things and just what we do, I think the better off that you'll be, and be more respected within the industry as well.
Okay. So if we went to say that one of the things that you would love to implement more will be the education and access for information.
Yes.
For the people that don't know, have easy access to what they need to know and understand.
Correct.
So, and especially the law.
Right. And it's not just the leasing, because I think there's a focus or an attention with many companies to just focus on leasing needs to know this. No, your guys, your maintenance team, your vendors, they're going into these apartments all the time. And as it pertains to like legal realms of things, they need to know, because you don't know what you don't know. And arming yourself with education and that wisdom is critical.
So just if you want to share one law that you know that is been misleaded or they haven't missed, that you might see it happens a lot and people are going against the law, in something maybe that come from either maintenance or vendors that might don't understand a particular law that you might share with the audience.
It's a sensitive subject. It was just recently passed, but Maya's Law.
Okay.
If you're familiar, no,
See?
in Orlando.
Okay.
I don't want to touch too much on that. I think individually, if you want to read up on that, but it has to do with giving out keys for apartments, and just the regulations that go behind that, and really safeguarding your residents and
what does the law says?
It has to pertain with having a key track system and an organized way that you're going to allow people into apartments, and the proper time frame, like the notification period. You have to give the full 24 hours, which most places should be giving that. That's like I think that's like apartment 101.
Yeah.
But there are some other institutions that maybe don't implement that, or smaller communities, smaller management companies maybe that don't. I know that we do. And we always have. But it brought about a very sad situation in the Orlando area recently.
Okay.
So just really understanding, like, the cause and effect of your behavior and your actions and how it pertains to the law. And, like, just checking out a key, for example. We're always going to ask the vendor for ID, okay, before they go into an apartment. So, well, why? Why do I have to? If you understand the why, then you won't ask questions. You'll just, you're like, oh, okay, I got it. No problem. Here you go. So that's one of the biggest ones I think that's come about recently, and definitely all for that.
You know what? I think the next episode will be Know the Law.
Know the
with
law.
For the multifamily, and then come up with 4 to 5 questions or 4 to 5 laws that are very important for vendors and to actually the actual management team to understand and know. Because I'm
Absolutely.
pretty sure that people don't like to read for the most part,
Right.
or to actually investigate a little bit more or
Right.
trying to learn more about the industry. Very, very few actually do the extra mile to go in. Those are the ones that are going to make it to regionals and VPs and all that because
Sure.
they actually putting the work into it.
And full disclaimer, like we're not attorneys or anything like
By no
that,
means, you know.
and read the law for yourself if you're wanting to know. It's a very sad situation, but knowledge is power, and arming yourself with that education and that knowledge is very critical on every single level.
You know, this is something that we say is that it is that knowledge is power only when we actually put the actions into it. Because if you don't, it's just knowledge in your
it's
brain.
just lip service, yeah.
So I always say, you know, not only that you're gonna you need to read or so, you know, you need to read and get the knowledge that you want for the particular for whatever industry that you're in, but make sure that you actually act upon it. You know, make the actions as required. You know, for
Yep.
whatever you learn. I am a person that I can read a quote, a meme, and I just immediately get inspired by it, and then just take actions on it.
Sure.
You know, that's just me. Some people never feel they will never.
It goes on the wall.
Right. Some of them, no, some of them they can read books and listen to podcasts. They never feel ready to take actions on
Sure.
something. So, but again, it goes into different individuals. But that's just me, the way I am.
Sure.
So, but yes, that's a great advice. It's just to get more knowledge and to be more aware to where the
Awareness.
awareness.
Awareness, yeah.
Yes.
And like, just having the conversation, you weren't aware of it. And that's just something that I'm like, it's on my radar, and
Yes.
it's a very something I'm very passionate about is knowing the law and trying to uphold it to its extent that it's, my town mayor, right?
Exactly.
Seeing that through for everybody.
So where's Gina going next? I mean, what are you aiming for when it comes to the industry?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. So I would like to get my CAPS next. And for those of you who don't know, that's a designation within the industry for portfolio specialist. So that would be my next step.
Awesome.
And we'll see. There's opportunities out there for sure. And the company I work for, it's great. I have the support of them wholeheartedly and look forward to growing with them. And I have a great family that supports me.
I know that too.
My daughter and, the love of God. So, yes.
Awesome. So I think...
And my team. I love my team.
There we go. So make sure
Couldn't do
that
that.
you share, the link for this podcast with all your team. Make sure that they subscribe and follow us on every platform.
I wouldn't be here today, honestly, without them. I think, the schedule that I had, it changed literally from the time you told me about it. Yesterday you sent me the information and here I am. But without them, shout out to Alicia,
awesome.
David, Curtis, Polly. Yay.
Excellent. Alrighty, guys. So, Gina, thank you so much for the information that has been shared with us today. I am pretty certain that there is a lot of people that usually take notes. They send me pictures, listening to the podcast, the notes that they've taken. So
that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I really like our
I love
audience.
to see that because and I can share my information with you as well. I have a Gina Da Silva multifamily@gmail.com. It's just a separate email that I keep for correspondence, like trade shows, things like that.
That is amazing. Okay.
So if anyone wants to reach out, has questions,
Perfect. And then, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Just a reminder that this is going to be launched next Thursday. You can listen and tune in on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. You can always look it up as a Multifamily Off the Cuff. And also, Gina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. This has been amazing.
Yes.
So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have a question and that you want us to discuss next, please leave it in the comments, and then we'll definitely going to bring it up next time, okay? All right. Thank you, guys.